Making the most of your mobile phone, presented by Mark Owen and David Quarmby from Outlookers in Huddersfield on the 10th of February 2022. About Live Well. Live Well is a series of events aimed at helping people make the most of life with sight loss. Live Well is a collaborative project between 6 local independent sight societies. Sight Advice South Lakes, Cumbria, My Sight's Notts, Nottingham, Sight Airedale in the Airedale area of North and West Yorkshire, Support for Sight in Mid and West Essex, Sutton Vision in the London Borough of Sutton, and Outlookers in Huddersfield in West Yorkshire.
Morning or evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. Over to Mark, who's going to introduce himself. Mark is one of the, Mark's organization is one of the 7 who runs this group. So morning, Mark, over to you.
I'm Mark Owen from Outlookers, formerly Kirklees Visual Impairment Network, and we're based up in Huddersfield, Dewsbury, Batley, that area of West Yorkshire. So very close to Anthony in Sight Airedale, just not that many miles away from Anthony's organisation. So welcome to everyone. What we've got this morning, I suppose, really is a bit of a different session in that rather than having a guest speaker, what we're going to do is just perhaps talk through some of the things that we do for our members and service users by way of helping them make their phones more accessible, and then open it out and perhaps discuss some of the things that people find useful. We might get into perhaps some of the apps that people use to do certain things, answer any questions. So this morning it's a bit of a tech meet living well in a discussion, sort of fairly open type format. Now, I think it's probably worth saying that obviously some of the things that we're going to talk about may well be things that you have done, or it may well be things that you've already using on your phone. So apologies if some of this is teaching people to suck eggs sort of thing, but it is quite interesting, and I suppose an experience that we had a couple of weeks ago probably reinforces why this thing is so useful, because a lady came to see us with the phone, and they'd done all sorts. They've been able to get their font sizes larger and those type of things, but they were really struggling with the screen on the phone being so bright, because one of the things that they didn't know about was how you could put a phone into dark mode, which made their lives then much easier. So I suppose the thing there is that we're never necessarily going to know everything that's available to us. Probably just worth at this point, just sort of taking a little bit of a sounding, is how many people are using Apple phones? Have we got some people using Apple iOS?
We've actually put everybody on mute. So
okay, we'll leave it at that, because I'll carry on, and I'll.
I saw some hands. I saw around 5-6 hands.
Okay, and
we have 22 on the call, so
it's going to be too big. Okay, that's fine. All right then. So I suppose a starting point, and I like to really refer to this as a bit of a pyramid of accessibility, pyramid of adjustment, if you like, that we can start to make for people. So I suppose let's take a typical scenario. Somebody will come in and see us, and they might have a phone that's been bought for them by a member of the family, or a phone that they have themselves, and obviously starting to experience much more difficulty in using it. So our starting point is there something that we can do with what somebody already has? Now, the extent to which we can do something is determined by, naturally, the thing that somebody has. What sort of phone it is, how old it is, what the capabilities of it are. So we start to have a look. But there are some general things that we're starting to look out for. And what I'll do is I'll sort of break this down into a few areas and initially talk about making the phone easier to use for someone with low vision. And then we'll get into the speech side of things a little bit later on. But from a low vision point of view, the starting point very often is to have a look at whether we can make the fonts larger. And most of the phones, you're able to do that. You're able to go into the display settings and increase the font size. So just sometimes by virtue of that, by increasing the font size from what it would be as a standard to a large or an extra large font, that can be the difference. So that's the first thing that we do. The second thing that we do is that a number of people tell us, well, actually, I find the screen very, very bright. I don't like the glare. I don't like the white background with the black text. I find it too intense. I find that there's too much glare. Most phones now will have what is called a dark mode. And when we think about dark mode, what it's doing in effect is it's flipping that around. So the black writing becomes white and that glary white background becomes black. So straight away, people have got larger print on their text messages and their menus and their emails if they use them. And then they've got the background that is black rather than white. So they're starting to take away that intensity of the glare. Now, one of the things that's worth pointing out is that sometimes on different phones, the same thing has a different name. So more often it's called dark mode and light mode. Sometimes though, you might see it referred to as dark theme and light theme. As I say with these, what we're talking about is ideas. What I don't, it's difficult to, and I don't think it would make the session necessarily flow that well if we got into the minute detail what we need to press to do each of those things, because obviously that's where links to the respective organisations that you're all joining from work really well, and that you've got Anthony, you've got the people within the different organisations that can help and support with those things on a more of a one-to-one level. This is about raising awareness of what's possible. Some of the older phones, you've still got the facilities to do that, but you'd be looking at something that's called Invert or smart invert. Sometimes you have to be a little bit careful on some of the older phones, because when you start to change the settings so that it's a black background, white text, it changes everything. So people say, oh, I want to look at a photo, and they look at a photo and it looks like a negative, of course, and it looks a bit scary because it's flipped all the colours around. So with some of the older phones, that becomes a little bit more difficult. So two things that we've done: we've changed background and we've changed font size. Now, one of the other things that people find challenging very often is actually seeing where the different icons are that they need to press in order to launch the different apps. I find that you find that you've got a different color. You might have a background. A lot of people have a background which is a picture of their favorite place, their partner or their grandchild or some other thing that's really important to them, which is fantastic. The only problem is sometimes that it makes it difficult to find the icon that you're looking for. A really quick solution to that is to give the phone what we call a dark wallpaper. So rather than me going off and buying a theme or something like that tends to cost a few quid, I simply take a picture of blackness. So I put the phone on the desk, or put it against the palm of my hand, take a picture of darkness, and I set that as the background. So straight away, it's much easier to distinguish where the different icons are for the apps that I want to use. And for the ones that we don't want, I remove them. Just get rid of it, clear the clutter, or perhaps try and make a bit more space around some of them, just to make it as straightforward for people to find the different things that they want to do. So for example, for one gentleman with the phone that we set up, the top left of the screen is where he presses to ring his wife. The top right of the screen is where he presses to ring his daughter. So again, just little things that we can do. So everything that I've described there, ironically, hasn't used any special features of the phone whatsoever. I haven't visited the accessibility menu at all. I haven't done anything with speech. I haven't done anything really with magnification. All I've done is use the inbuilt features of the phone just to make it easier for someone with low vision to use. So it's probably a useful point at which to pause there and maybe just open it up and see whether anyone has any questions around that, or if there's something that anyone would like me to clarify or say a little bit more about. How are we doing so far?
Hi, I've got a question to ask you. It's on phone. Do they have high contrast?
Yeah, it depends on which phone is it you're using, Roger?
I'm using Android, one of Samsung's old phone, which doesn't have high contrast on it. I was thinking by a later version of an Android is what they're up to 20 or A20.
Yeah, that's right. So the latest version of Android is Android 12, and that does have on the Samsungs, that does have high contrast. On the latest Android, what they do have is a series of themes that you can apply, and what that does is it does all of those things that I've described, where it does them in one foul swoop, so to speak. So it actually gives you a series of themes that you can use. But yeah, you're able to do things like high contrast, and one of the things I would very strongly recommend, even on the older Androids, like 10, 11, Android 10, Android 11 as well, is you have a high contrast keyboard, and that's very, very useful in that you can get the yellow keys with black writing or black keys with yellow writing, things like that. So the high contrast keyboards are another thing to use. But yeah, what you'll find, the gentleman that asked the question previously, is that the newer versions of Android do have that accessibility that is improved. And one of the things that I would strongly suggest to anyone with low vision who's looking at a phone is to look for one with what's called an OLED screen. And you tend to get that on things like some of the Samsung A series, the S series. Have a look at something with an OLED screen if you can run to that from a financial point of view. The reason for that is that the screens are a lot clearer. The contrast of them, because of the way that they work, is so much higher. The black is very, very black, and the white is very, very white. So it makes it a lot easier to get that contrast because of the way that they work. So does that sort of answer it for you? You do have more options, a newer version of Android that you can get.
Yes, it does. Yes. Yeah.
Certainly look Android 10 and above. Look at the if you're looking at new phones, depending on what you want, in things like the Samsung A series. I haven't looked at the new Google one, but my problem that I had with Google phones was that the large fonts that they could do were not very large. So I'm always a bit wary of Google phones, although they are very, very good for Android speech for talkback. But for screen and large print, they're not great.
I've now a question to ask you, because when you look at the phones, the lifespans of the phone sometimes could be 1-2 years, depends on how often they update their software. If you buy an iPhone, you get probably 5 years. With Android phones, you probably get 1 or 2 years from when you purchase it.
I think that's a really important point that you make there. You're quite right. One of the things that you find with iPhones is you get many more. I think it's the iPhone 7 is still getting updates. I think it's going to get its last one, but when you think about how old the iPhone 7 is, that's still on the latest version. Whereas like the Android ones, you tend to get maybe two updates, and that's it. So like you say, you're only getting that 2 years worth of updates, which is quite frustrating. But it's a very valid point when people talk about the cost difference, if you like, between an Android phone and an Apple. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And any others before we move on? One of the other things that we often then talk to people about is if we've got to the stage where we've done as much as we can by tweaking the font size, making the screen darker, etc., we then start to talk about whether or not to use magnification of the actual whole screen of the phone itself. So the next thing that I'll mention briefly is screen enlargement. Now, some of you might have done this with a computer, and of course, you know, the principle is there that we're enlarging the screen. So we're now enlarging the contents of the screen, and as we enlarge more and more, by its nature, we're going to see less and less of the screen. Obviously, on a mobile phone, that can start to become, you know, quite challenging, because when you're seeing only a small area on something that's very small to begin with, it does become quite challenging to do. But both the Android phones and the iPhone do have the ability to enlarge the screen, either through enlarging the whole lot of it or through doing like a lens. So if you think of the principle of a magnifier on the whole of a piece of paper, with the magnifier, as you're moving the magnifier around the piece of paper, you're magnifying what's within the scope of the magnifier. So you're magnifying what the actual magnifying glass can see. In the same way, you can do that with the phone, with a lens magnification, or you can magnify the whole screen. On the Android phones, that's called magnification. On the iPhones, it's called zoom. So as I say, it's different name for the same thing. But in addition to enlarging the screen of the phone, one of the things that many people like to do is to actually use the phone as a electronic magnifier. So I'm sure a number of us, myself included, have got a fair old selection of optical magnifiers that we got from our low vision aid clinic. And if you're like me, occasionally, only very occasionally, because this thing is sort of wedded to me, I forget to take my optical magnifier out. What am I going to do instead? Well, even if I haven't got anything specialist on the phone, what I tend to do sometimes is just simply use the phone's camera app, and use the phone's camera app with the pinch gesture to make things, zoom things in and out, to see perhaps something that's in the shop window, or to read a menu. So even using the phone's camera can be a really effective way of doing it if you haven't got any of the apps on the phones. If you do feel that you want to get into magnification a little bit more, then one of the things that you can do is get a magnifying app, magnification app. So something like Claro Mag X, which is available on both Android and iPhone, or even with the iPhone, its inbuilt magnification app is really, really useful. Now, what we tend to find, and I'm sure a number of people on this call might find the same thing, that we benefit from changing the color scheme. So a number of our members tend to like the yellow text on the black background. And again, with the magnification apps, that's something you can do nice and easily. So using something like Claro or the inbuilt app on the iPhone means that you can turn your phone or indeed your tablet into a handheld electronic magnifier. And that's an option for some people because they're not something that's prescribed by the low vision aid clinic. And if people wanted to get a handheld electronic magnifier, then they're quite an expensive piece of equipment to buy. You know, you're looking at about £250, you know, probably for your cheapest ones. Whereas if you're confident with the use of the phone, you feel it's something you'd like to learn, actually getting one of the magnification apps for your phone or for your tablet turns it into that handheld electronic magnifier. So again, it's a really, really useful thing to be able to do, and is meaning that your phone is performing that extra function for you. So we'll open it up again and just see if anyone's got any questions around the electronic sort of either the screen enlargement or the using the phone as a magnifier side of things.
I use what do I use? Supervision, which is very good for close-up magnification, and something else called text view OCR, I think. Let's have a...
Right.
Yeah.
The supervision, is that on an Android or is that on Apple?
Yeah, this text scan is a very good OCR program I use, and that's very good for reading small print. It brings it up as reconstituted text rather than an image, and it can also read it out to you. So I find that very useful.
I just wanted to confirm that on this phone that I've got, it's an iPhone 11, there is a magnifying app on there. I've seen it on. Would that work? Is that what you're saying, or do I have to have another app?
No, on the iPhone, not quite right. On the iPhone, it's built in.
Oh, good. That's okay.
So in your accessibility menu,
yes,
you'll find it there called Magnification.
Yes.
And then it will make the magnification app available to you.
Fine. Thank you very much. That's all.
It works in the same way as the camera, except it's the action of being able to do the color filtering if you do find that color filtering is useful.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Great.
Thank you, Geraldine.
Moving to the next bit, which we nicely segued with the question earlier on, is we tend to talk about some of the apps for scanning and reading, and we've got a few favorites there, and I'm sure a number of people who use the iPhone are familiar with the app Seeing AI, and a number of people who use Android may well be familiar with the app Lookout by Google. So essentially, there are sort of two functions really. I mean, they have a lot more, but probably sort of two functions and an important distinction that I was just going to usefully make here. So the first thing is the quick read. So these are the little instances, aren't they? I mean, we all know them very, very well. Is it a tin of beans? Is it a tin of peas? Is it a tin of spaghetti? Which is it? I just want to know. So those have like the quick text read type features, and essentially it's behaving like an eye. It's looking round, it's looking with the video camera of the phone to see what it can see. So it will see the thing that's in front of it, and try and read it. So you've got your tin held up, or you've got your box held up, or whatever it is, and it will focus on that and it will read it for you. One of the other things that they do, which is slightly different, is a document read. I tend to think of the quick read as being those sort of very quick jobs, tin of beans, tin of peas, whereas a document read, tend to think about the letter that's come through the post. And what that will do when you go onto the document read type feature is that will give you guidance. It will say too far, too close, bottom edge missing, top edge missing. So it's giving you guidance about where to position the phone or the tablet above the document. And we sort of tend to say, it's in many ways it might be easy just to start quite high and then come in, because you can all, it's easier to perhaps to do that, and then you're always going to have more chance of it all being visible to the camera, and then it will be able to read the whole document. Those things do other things as well, such as the face detection and describing the scene for you. But in terms of an important feature, I think that's a great one. I mean, we're so many times when we've been away on holiday, you go to somewhere, you go to a museum, or you go somewhere and there's a big information board, and you're thinking, well, what's all that about? And I'd love to read it. And just pointing the phone at it, and it reads it for you. I just sort of find those type of apps, whether it's Lookout by Google for Android, whether it's Seeing AI for the iPhone, or another one that we recommend called Sullivan Plus with a plus sign that's for both. I just sort of tend to find that those apps are really liberating in terms of being able to read, whether it's a quick read or whether it's something that's a bit more detailed. So I don't know whether anyone else has had any. I mean, we've already mentioned one of the apps. I think it was Ron that mentioned one of the apps earlier on, but I don't know whether anyone else has got any comments or any thoughts around those type of apps. Do you find them useful? Anybody using?
Can I come in with a quick tip, Mark?
Roger.
Yeah.
If you're blind, it's much easier to put your phone in the middle of the page that you want to scan and lift it up gradually to about a foot or so high, and then do the document scan. So you're centering your phone in the middle of the page that you want to scan, and then lift it up by about a foot to scan it.
Yeah. You find it easier to do that way, David?
Yeah, much easier.
Can I introduce you to my colleague, David Quarmby?
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
I've been quiet in the background since about 10:10, so yeah.
There you go, right. So that's a neat point at which to introduce you, David, and we've gone through the magnification, we've gone through the enlargement, we've talked about the different apps in terms of starting to look at reading.
Yeah.
One of the things that we very often talk about as well is moving people from using magnification or that type of solution to introducing them to using the speech, and that's where you've got some very useful tips. Okay,
now if everybody can hear me all right, there are really sort of two ways that people come to actually use speech on the phone. Sometimes they're new to the phone, and if they're new to the phone, the first thing is getting orientation of what's on the phone, where the buttons are, where the home button is, if it's got a home button in the middle at the bottom, where the volume up, volume down, and mute keys are. Getting familiarized with the actual design of the phone. And once you're aware of the design of the phone, particularly with an Apple phone, you want to know where the status bar is right up at the top, which tells you where the Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth, the power, and the time is, and that's the top line of the screen. And on the bottom line of the screen, where if you've got a home button, the home button's in the middle there, is the dock. And the dock basically is a line of apps that you use all the time that you want visible on every page that you go on. So your phone would be there, you might have Safari there, you might have your mail or your messages there. And it's just getting the orientation of the phone so that when you actually come to actually use it, you know where things are. Now, if you're losing your sight and you're going from magnification to speech, the basic thing you need to be aware of is you're using it differently than if you were sighted. And once you've turned VoiceOver on or talkback on, if you touch the screen, rather than opening an icon that you touch, it actually just speaks it. So wherever you touch on the screen, it will highlight what you touch and speak it to you. So the first sort of gesture is just the touch gesture, knowing what's on the screen. Now, if I open a phone up, I don't know if you can hear
Messages.
it. Now, can you hear that all right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So if I touch on the screen now, I'm touching,
Amazon apps folder.
and
8 apps.
it'll tell me
Clock.
what I'm
10:40
touching.
Music folder.
So
7
that's
apps.
the first gesture, is the
Double
touch
tap to
gesture.
open.
Now, if I want to go into it, if you're sighted, you touch it and it goes into it. You've got the double tap gesture, the single finger double tap gesture. So if I touch something now, I've got hints on, it'll tell me what to do. So touch it.
Productivity folder. 13 apps. Double tap to open.
So it's telling me exactly what I need to do. Now, knowing where your apps are on the screen helps. So familiarizing with where the phone is, and I said it's down on the dock. So if I just touch at the bottom on the left-hand side.
Dock. Phone.
So I found it straight
Double
away.
tap to open.
If I go right up to the top,
Messages.
it touches
Double
on
tap
messages.
to
So knowing where your icons, where your folders, where your apps are on the screen is very useful. But the next gesture, if you need to find something very quickly, so if I wanted to find my sort of book folder, I'd touch roughly where I think it is.
App Store.
And then I'd
Double tap.
flick left or right until I find
Medical
it.
Folder. OCR. Weather folder. Books folder.
And I found
21
it. So
apps.
all I was doing there was
Double
flicking
tap to
left.
open.
Now, the flicking left and right is quite an easy gesture once you've become familiar with it. But some people find it very difficult to actually do. And really, the easiest way to describe it is like flicking a piece of dust off the screen. So if I'm flicking to the right,
Weather folder. OCR folder.
or I flick to the
33 apps.
left,
Weather folder.
I'm
Books
going
folder.
back.
Weather folder. OCR folder. Weather folder. 7 apps.
The
Double
next
tap
sort
to
of
open.
thing, perhaps, as we've already started with VoiceOver on, we might need to know how to turn VoiceOver on and off. Now, to do that, it's quite easy using Siri, and that's one of the main means of turning VoiceOver on and off. And to do that, you press the home button down, and if I demonstrate that now, turn VoiceOver off.
Okay, I've turned VoiceOver off.
So it's turned VoiceOver off. Now, if I press the home button again, turn VoiceOver on.
Okay, I've turned VoiceOver on.
Now, if you notice the difference there, when I turned it off, it beeped at me to let me know that Siri was ready and listening. VoiceOver does that. But when VoiceOver is off, you don't get a beep to let you know that it's listening. So you just put your finger on and hold it and speak straight away and say, turn VoiceOver off. The other ways of turn VoiceOver on and off is that there is an accessibility shortcut, and that can be found in settings, accessibility, VoiceOver, and right down at the bottom is of that list of things you can do is the accessibility shortcut. And when you tick that, whether you've ticked it for VoiceOver or magnification or Zoom, etc. You can have a triple tap on the home button to actually turn VoiceOver on and turn VoiceOver off. So if I demonstrate that now, 1, 2, 3,
VoiceOver off.
VoiceOver's off. If I do it again, oh, it's not. Technically, it's not come on. 1, 2, 3.
VoiceOver off.
VoiceOver off. 1, 2, 3. And it's not telling me it's back on again.
Settings, dock. So
But it normally does speak when it's back on again. The other way of turning VoiceOver on or off, we've done it, the accessibility shortcut. The other way is to go into settings itself, and that's going into settings, accessibility, and right at the top of that, you've got VoiceOver, and you do a single finger double tap on VoiceOver, and then do another single tap on VoiceOver to turn it on or turn it off. So those are the 3 ways to turn VoiceOver on or off. Now, when someone gets a phone right at the beginning and they're not familiar with it, you're learning the basic sort of gestures of the touch gesture, the flicking left and right gesture, and the single finger double tap gesture. And people can quite easily start using the phone using Siri if they know, if they've got name contacts to actually ring. And all you do then is hold the home button down and say, ring Mark Owen, and you get Siri coming back, you want to call Mark Owen, and you say yes, and off it goes and rings that person. So somebody can be quite easy, quickly up and running with speech using Siri until they start learning the gestures. And there's quite a lot of gestures to actually learn to get the full accessibility, but you can actually start using the phone on a regular basis using that. Now, shall I stop there and see if there's any questions so far?
You're just talking there about iPhones, so for all the Android users, what you just said isn't really applicable, right?
Well, do you want to come in there, Mark? Because a lot of the touch and the gestures are very similar with Android. It's just that when you're actually setting up your phone to use TalkBack, you need to, it's different within the settings, what you switch on and switch off. And the range of gestures that you use are different with using TalkBack. But your basic ones, such as touch, flicking left and right, and double tapping is the same. And the same in terms of when you want to answer a phone call, you've got the 2-finger double tap to answer the phone call. So yes, there are differences, and to do both Android and iPhone now would be quite a lengthier process. So it's more detailed. But the basic gestures are very similar. Do you want to come in there, Mark? Because you're very much a Android user.
Yeah. So coming in on the Android, the thing that makes Android a little bit more challenging is that there are obviously so many different types of phones. So as a general rule now, on lots of them, the new ones, holding the volume up and down buttons in together for a few seconds.
Talk back on.
One
UI home.
We'll switch the
double tap and drag to move.
which will swing.
Double tap and hold to long press.
We'll switch talk back on. The idea of the gestures, as David described, is the same. The only difference that you can have with TalkBack is that rather than having a double tap to do something, you can have it's a single tap. So as soon as you touch it, it does it. So there is variation and the sort of slight issue with Android is because there are different versions on different phones with different button configurations. It becomes a bit more sort of murky in terms of how it works on individual ones sometimes.
Okay, any more questions?
Yeah, it's Anthony from Site Airedale. Just to add that if you're using an iPhone that doesn't have a home button, you can actually use the sleep wake button, which is located on the left-hand side of the right-hand side of the phone,
Yeah.
as it faces you, to access Siri and the accessibility shortcut.
Yeah. Thank you, Anthony. Yeah.
Hopefully what we've done is, so taking it from that very, very introductory level of adjustment through the font sizes and the screen colors, right through the magnification to the introduction of the speech, and also thrown in some of the apps that we find are useful for people in terms of reading or magnification. But I'm conscious that we've still got around 10 minutes left on the session.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if it's worth opening it out, and if there are any general, whatever it is, if somebody wants to ask about reading or audio books or any, then we might be able to, just.
I have a question for you.
Go for it.
So we have my friend here from Australia, Maribel, and I call her on WhatsApp sometimes. She's got a Nokia phone running Android, and she finds it difficult to locate on the screen where to answer the call. Can you help with that?
I'll let you know what happens. My phone rings and it's not showing me anything different. So if I'm looking at my home screen, although the WhatsApp is ringing, it's not showing me anything. I can flick it up how I would normally answer a call, but it just doesn't do anything.
Are you using TalkBack, or are you using it with some vision?
Mainly, no, I always have my accessibility on.
You talk back on, yeah?
Yeah.
So doing the 2-finger tap doesn't answer the call?
No, so normally if I get a call, I actually swipe up and it answers the call. When I get the WhatsApp call, it's not doing anything. Nothing's changing on the screen, and it's ringing, and I don't seem to be able to do anything that's answering the call.
Okay.
It sounds like the focus isn't landing on the.
Right.
So as you flick left to right, does it eventually say answer call button?
I haven't tried left to right. I've just done up, which is how I normally answer a call.
Yeah.
So maybe I need to flick right where it shows me all the apps, because my WhatsApp is not on my front page.
I'm trying to think, because I don't do a lot of WhatsApp calls, in all honesty, but I'm trying to think when I have had a WhatsApp call, it comes up in the same way, like with a dialer, as if it was a phone dialer that you then answer.
And maybe I could try putting the WhatsApp on the home page. That might be something different. But basically, I don't know how to answer Roger's call.
Yeah, I'm thinking even if the WhatsApp's running. Yeah, I'm just trying to think about that. I'm just gonna WhatsApp call someone.
You can call me. I have my phone.
No. I'm just gonna call someone who's in the room with me. Have you got your? Right, I'm just gonna WhatsApp call someone who's in the room with me.
Well, Roger could do it now. I can try and answer it.
Yeah, no, I'm just. She's just trying to find it now, so I apologise for that little bit of noise.
Yeah.
Right. It did it. So what did you do?
On the screen.
Yeah.
And it said,
what did you do?
And at one point it said accept call. And
so that was my wife was just answering. I just WhatsApp called my wife who's in the room here as well. So you just swiping until you found the accept call button. Yeah.
Okay.
So just swipe into the right until you find the accept call button and then double tap.
All right. I'll try that.
Do that, so it's got
yeah.
Yeah, it has. You're just saying it didn't used to do that, so it does seem to have got a bit better probably been a bit of an update again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perhaps
What do they say on the radio? That's the power of live radio.
Can I just try that now? Because I've just found Maribel now, so I'll just call her.
Well, hang on, my phone's in another room, Roger.
Oh, what?
Go ask someone else. I'll quickly grab it.
Right.
Solutions on the move. Yeah, that's good.
Does anybody has any other question?
Any others? How are we doing, folks?
Yeah.
I'll ask a quick question. It's Vicky.
Hi,
Hello,
Vicky.
Hiya. One thing I do, I basically, I mean, you've just said exactly what I do when I go through with my clients, but obviously VoiceOver or the equivalent talkback is quite difficult for people to get an immediate grasp on. So I can get them to use Hey Siri to basically send a text message to somebody, for instance, and that's really, really straightforward. But if they get a text message back, what is the quickest and easiest without going into the full? Because they used to be sort of touch. It would read it out back in the day, and I don't know whether there's something simpler.
The easiest way is once the messages come, if it's set to notifications, it will be notifications. So you can quite easily use your home button or use the side button and hold that down to evoke Siri and just say, read my notifications, and it will read your recent notifications. And if it's a message, it'll read you the bulk of the message, depending if it's a short or a long one. So that's the quickest way to get at your messages very easily.
Excellent. I had heard about that, but I hadn't realised how to do it. I haven't tried it myself, so that's really useful.
Yeah, and I suppose you could ask Siri. Another one would be to read my text messages, and if you've got a text message that's come in, it'll go straight to the text message. Yeah.
Did I hear that it only works on new ones though? If you haven't listened to it before.
No, it should work on all ones that have got Siri, as long as you've got Siri active. Yeah. Yeah. And as long as you've got Wi-Fi or you've got mobile data, so you can actually use Siri on the move. Yeah. Yeah.
Mark, is there anything similar on Android?
Yeah, so in the same way with Android, you can do the Hey Google, and that will read your WhatsApps.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just wondering, what would happen if I said, "Hey Google, answer WhatsApp"?
Ooh.
Hey Google, open at WhatsApp. It should open WhatsApp.
No, if Roger rings me now, my phone's here. But if I would say, "Hey Google, answer WhatsApp" or something, will it do that?
I don't think so, but it's worth trying. But I don't think it would.
Yeah. Does anybody have any other question?
Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Let us know 2 weeks' time or next week how you go on.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. Yeah.
Yeah. No one. We had a message from Key and Helen thanking you, Mark and David, for the amazing session. So thank you. And then if there is no further questions, then thank you all for coming.
Live Well and Future Vision. We hope you enjoyed this presentation. The Live Well events take place on the second Thursday of each month at 10 AM. Future Vision sessions take place on the fourth Thursday of each month at 10 AM. and are technology events aimed at people living with sight loss. To attend the next session or to suggest future topics, please contact your local Sight Society, who will be able to provide you with the Zoom link.